got a great tone to play, you know. Just,
Hello?
Have you ever snogged a lady?
We had a technical problem.
Are we on? Yeah, we're on there.
Can I swear? Shit!
Every day in every radio station across the land, presenters and producers rack their brains to come up with compelling and engaging content that will resonate with their target audience and build a strong and loyal listener base. There's topics based around what's going on in the world or sense of day or the day's big political talking points, and of course, passionate and insightful chat about music. And all these topics are meticulously researched and prepped in order to elicit engagement with their audience on the phone or text message, and of course on social media as well. And every single one of them knows that if they just asked what's your favourite biscuit, they'd get 1,000% more calls. This is Crunch and Roll, and of course it's Crunch Cream or Fig Roll. I'm John Fox, known to some as Foxy, done breakfast shows across the UK, more recently some programmes on the BBC. Today's guest was a pirate. Pirate radio DJ, sorry. She then walked the plank and became a landlubber, working at some big stations on dry land, and now she has the real pleasure of working with me 5 nights a week on the BBC across the Midlands. It's the lovely Caroline Martin. We had a lovely chat, found out why she's actually called Caroline, and also about one of the most famous ghosts in British radio stations, and also why she loves late night radio. As usual, it's a little bit sweary and does contain some adult content. Let's crunch and roll.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, Caroline.
Hello, Foxy.
How are you?
I am good.
I've just mentioned in the intro that you and I now work together.
We do.
And I am very fortunate to be part of Caroline's Late Show production team. And when I say team, I mean you and I.
Now, are you being sarcastic now or not? Because, I mean, we've worked together for a good, 10 months now, and it took me a little while to try and work out the sarcasm bit to the not sarcastic. So are you being real? Look me in the eye.
I am being semi-sarcastic and a little bit real.
Well, I like working with you.
I like working with you. Is that enough for the sycophantic stuff? I think it is. We're getting a nod for
that's it. Yeah.
You might even edit that bit out. Who knows? Right. Well, Caroline, thank you very much for doing Crunch and Roll.
Pleasure.
I know you were a little bit reluctant to do this, and I think, if truth be known, behind the Caroline Martin that people hear on air, you're very shy.
I like to keep myself to myself. Yeah, I'm not very showbiz, am I? So if you want showbiz stories, you're like in the wrong place, because I don't do anything rock and roll or showbiz. So, you know, but I can tell you some stories about what I have done that were rock and roll. But
I think that you have got some rock and roll stories. And you've got a great CV of stations. But I think we're going to focus quite a bit on the first one, which, of course, is Radio Caroline.
Yes.
Now, before we get on board, have you seen what I've done there?
Yeah, I like that. Clever.
Thank you. You can whistle me on. I want to talk about your dad.
Yes, Ivan.
Ivan, the driving instructor.
Yes. He just loved radio. I say he loved radio. He loved pirate radio. And growing up, we were never allowed to listen to the BBC.
Really?
Yeah, weren't allowed it on. You know, when I get to a certain age, or got to a certain age, my friends were listening to the charts, weren't they? Because, you know, they want to know what's number one. I was never allowed to have the charts on or any Radio 1 in the house. Never allowed. It's just about the pirates.
So what was your dad's fascination with pirate then?
I think that if he were here and if he were to admit it, I am doing what he always wanted to do but was never brave enough to do it.
Right.
And he used to listen to the pirate radio stations, and for him it was just all about the music. My dad absolutely loves music, and he used to go out and he used to visit them. You'd get on a little boat, you'd go chugging out, you'd have a little kind of like circle round, and then you'd come back again, and all of that would take hours. And
so is that all you did? You got on a boat and you sailed? You never got on board?
When he first used to go out there, yeah, he used to go out to the first ship, which was the Mi Amigo, and he was going to take me, and then it sunk. So that
didn't happen.
Blew that one out of the water. But I did go out and see it when it had sunk,
right.
And we saw the mast sticking up. So we went and sailed around that, and then came back home again. When it came back in the Ross Revenge, we went, and for the first few times we'd sail around it, and then you could go on board. And it was all really, you're not allowed to, it's illegal, it's a pirate radio ship, and all the rest of it. But just to get on board that and to feel that buzz. And I just thought, I've got to do this.
So just explain to me. So I know very little about these stations, these pirate stations on boats. So if they were illegal, why did nobody know where they were?
You could see them, but they were in international waters.
Right, okay.
So because they were in international waters, they couldn't be touched.
Right,
so,
I see.
But to get to them, you had to go from, a lot of the boats used to come from England, and they would be kind of like watched going in and out of the harbours. So after time, we'd go in and out from Europe, Belgium, France, and so on and so forth.
So much effort to go and see these boats.
It's a great deal of effort to go and see the boats, but that was only when you were going out there to stay. The visitors, you could, because there's no problem with coming to have a look.
Right.
You're not breaking any law by just sailing out there and sailing round and having a look. It's if you supply them with things. You're not allowed to supply them with anything, because if you're supplying them with water, well, actually water, I think you could, because it's a life-saving thing, isn't it? You have to have it as part of life. But if you're chucking, treats up, then it's illegal.
Sweets.
Yeah, no good. The one thing we always wanted, cigarettes. You'd be looking at somebody, bring some fags. Come on, bring them out here.
So you're called Caroline because your dad named you after Radio Caroline.
Yes.
Is that true?
That is absolutely true. Yes.
Thank the Lord he didn't go for Laser 828.
Well, Laser 558, and it
558.
was later that Laser came out. It was either going to be Caroline or Veronica. There was another radio station called Veronica. So
I think you're our first guest that's named after a radio station.
There we are.
And probably our only one. So was the passion for the radio, did you get that yourself just by watching your dad's passion, or did he kind of say, you need to do it?
He never ever said that.
Did he not?
He never once said that. My dad was all about music. My dad loved music, and Radio Caroline played the music that he liked, hence why he was listening to it. So it was weird, because at school everybody was going in and they were talking about what's in the charts. I didn't know what was in the bloody charts. I hadn't heard it, had I? So I was talking about, Kansas, Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, Steely Dan, all this stuff that my dad was listening to. And we'd go into school and everybody would have the band names, on their bags and all the rest of it. And I'd have the Electric Light Orchestra. So I was always a bit kind of like, oh God, she's odd. But I didn't care, because it's just the music that gives you something. And that was what it was all about for me, to get out there in the end, just to be surrounded by this music and to step into that record library, and the feeling that you get when you're in there. Because when you used to do a show, you'd be on for 4 hours. I know people moan now, but it's been a thing for a while. Yeah. You'd go in and you'd get enough music, and you'd have them from these cards. It would be like an index file.
Right.
So you would take 4 from the 70s, 3 from the 80s, some from the 60s, and then you'd get these cards, and then you'd go to the record library, you'd pick out the album, and then you could go and make what you wanted out of it. So the music was chosen for you, but you could create what you wanted in that 4 hours, play it where and when. So, there was a sort of a format to it that I never dared break, because I was very young then and thought, I can't break these rules. Imagine me back there now.
Yeah, well, you break more rules now than you did then. So hang on, so let's just go back. So your dad eventually got you onto Caroline.
Well, we started to actually go out and visit it and go on board.
Okay.
And, and then I'd go by myself, because sometimes he couldn't always go, because we lived in Cambridge and you'd have to drive to Essex to actually get the tender out to the boat. So sometimes he couldn't go. So sometimes I went with other friends. And I think it was a bank holiday, and it was really calm. And it was Sunday, we went out, and they said, do you want to stay? Because there's another boat coming out tomorrow. So if you want to stay overnight, you can, and then go back the next day. And I thought, oh, God. And I did. And it was just like, from there on in, I thought, right, I need to come back here. This is amazing.
And did you have dreams of presenting then?
I knew that was what I wanted to do.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because some people, you started out as a cook or whatever, and then you got on air. But no, this was what I wanted to do. And I was shite.
Was
I was so bad when you're looking back on it. But you think, because you can't call yourself by your proper name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why people change their names, because it's illegal.
Okay.
Because you're not supposed to be there. So I decided I was going to be called Vicky Martin. That was going to be my name.
Right.
And I opened the microphone up and forgot that I'd chosen Vicky. So I said Caroline, then remembered I'd got to change it, Martin. And you know what it's like? You're like 16 years old thinking, 1 million people have just heard me say the wrong name. I've got to stick to it now. It's the overnight. Nobody cares. But it kind of like stuck, and then I kept going back there.
So you were 16?
Yeah.
16 years old.
I know. I look at my daughter now, and I think...
I know. I heard some of the stories about your daughters.
I know. So,
Would you let them go on board a ship? Because let's just point out that you're the only lady on there as well.
Yeah. Well, not always. There were some others, but a lot of the times that I was out there, then yes, I was the only lady out there. Girl, then, wasn't I?
Yeah, I mean,
was
girl.
A girl. A wee girl. But people always flag that up as if there was, you were the only girl and there was lots of men. You must have had lots of orgies. It was that you're out there and it's like your brother and they're like my family.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. I'm not going to lie and say that everything was innocent because I can imagine somebody's going to be listening to this thinking she's lying because I know. Yeah, fine, right, one or two. But I did end up actually being engaged to them.
Right.
So
what, two of them?
Yeah, well, I was with one and then we split up. You know what it's like. You're together and you think we need to be together forever. We'll get engaged. I think we needed some mugs. So we got engaged to have a little party.
Well, that scenario of being on a boat with a load of other people must have been a little bit like in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, the Big Brother house.
Do you know what? I often think that when I'm watching it now because they always say, don't they, that it's so intense. Everything's so intense because you're with those same people for all of the time. That is very true. You get to see them, warts and all, and you get to know everything that there is to know about them because you can't escape. You're on the boat, you cannot see land, and you know that even if you could, you can't get to it. Because a boat that came from England would take 4 hours to get you back there anyway. So it's not going to happen. You're stuck there. You have to make the best of it. But I mean, what a life, you get up and I used to do the overnights to begin with and you could just roll out of bed, go up in your nightie, do the show and then go back to bed again. It was just beautiful. And
do you, because you've still got friends, haven't you, from those days? I mean, are they strong? They must be strong connections as opposed to, I mean, your CV, you've got, we'll go through the stations in a bit, but that time of Radio Caroline and the way that you all lived on that boat, those friendships must be stronger than friendships you've had since, or different perhaps. Different.
I think that they were different, and I don't know. I've thought about this. I've asked myself this: were we all looking for something?
God, this is deep.
No, really, were we looking for something out there? Because there were people there from all walks of life. And, some people have gone on to do very well. Some people are in radio. Mm-hmm. Some people have gone on to do very well in whatever they chose to do.
Yeah.
I look at them now and it's like there's no time has passed. We all look different. We've all aged. But in my head, we're still those kind of like young things that were on this boat.
Naughty school kids.
Loving life. Yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely loving life. And the trouble, I think, with Radio Caroline, I say the trouble because it was one of the best times of my life, is that you've almost peaked too soon.
Yeah.
Because there will never be, and it makes me really sad for people that are starting out in radio, that they don't have anything like that, because there will never be that again.
No, absolutely.
And it's not just about the radio, it's about the way of life, You've just got to stand on your own 2 feet. You've just got to get on with it. There was no internet, no shops, no nothing. You couldn't get a haircut. But so what? It didn't matter. You're alive, you're happy, and you had some really bloody good music to play every day.
And tell me, so there's a few stories which I want you to share that you've told me previous to doing this podcast. So the one story which I'm desperate for you to share, you told me, and you only told me a brief part of it, you got dangled over the side. Yeah. Of the boat. There
was a period of time where there was a boat out there because Laser 558 came out. Laser came.
And that was the American.
Yeah. And that was like...
You loved them, didn't you?
Whoa, that was massive. I mean, the sound that I mean, that was just like something else. I think that people listened to that and they were like, shit. Because the jingle, everything, and the presenters, it was like nothing that I had ever heard before.
Yeah. And that was on a boat.
That was on a boat just over the
Pirate station again, yeah.
So if you look, like we're in Birmingham at the moment, so if we look at WM, where it is, free where it was over there, that's the distance.
Oh, really? So you could see each
so
other?
You could see each other. Yeah, and it was so I think that Caroline, it kind of like, it got away with being out there, but it wasn't ruffling too many feathers. But when Laser came, I think it had such an impact, and loads of people were listening to it, and loads of people were talking about it. They sent a boat out to survey it, the dioptric surveyor. So when you went out, you couldn't get on board because, of course, they'd be filming you. They were filming who came, who went. They were making it really difficult for anybody to supply the boats.
Right, okay.
So effectively, if you're stopping the supply,
yeah.
you're going to starve them out.
God, it's brutal,
They're pirates. You find ways around these things.
Well,
don't you?
we'll talk about that. Yeah, go on.
But they threw kind of like a canister. So they had, I don't know what was inside. It was either a note of codes which indicated what they want, because if we were short of something, you'd read out these codes on air, so that just random, because somebody would be listening out and they've run out of toilet rolls, or they've got no water, or best get some of that out, and they put it in a airtight container, watertight container, and they chucked it to come onto the boat, and it missed and it was bobbing about, so we didn't want them to get hold of it, so they ended up dangling me over the edge of the boat, and I'm there sort of like with my head in the North Sea just trying to grab this thing to save it, so we would get hold of that and take it back.
And is it true that you had to get rescued by an RAF helicopter?
Yeah, that
You say it really blasé. Like, yeah, we did.
No, because it really did. This was the last time that I was ever there while it was at sea, and it really did get really desperate. There was no food. There was no electricity. It was November. I have never known cold like it.
You don't like it cold?
I hate it cold. But you've got 3 kids. Essentially, there were 3 kids out there. There was me, a guy called Rico, and another guy. And we were out there, and it was quite scary because, we're on a ship that obviously is anchored. It's not going to go anywhere. But we had no fuel, so we had a little generator. I say fuel when I mean for the main engines or for the main generators. But we had a little generator, one of those ones that you pull to start, and we had a sort of string of lights so that we could be seen at night. And then at some point they didn't work, so we had to make tilly lamps up and go and dangle those around. And it was quite scary because somebody had to take a watch. So I was on watch one day. So if you saw another boat, you'd wave the tilly lamp or do whatever it was you were going to do
to stop it from going into.
Yeah, so that you could be seen. And I decided I needed to smoke, so I needed a roll up. Well, we'd run out of cigarettes, so we had to re-roll the ones that I know it's gross. It's gross. But so I'm fiddling around trying to do this, and then I suddenly look up and I'm like, shit, because an oil tanker is like nearly on us, and I'm like, I dropped the bloody roll up again, and I've got the tilly lamp, and I'm sort of like waving it, and I don't know how it missed us, but it did just sort of like skirt by. And so you had some heart in mouth moments.
Wow.
But it was in the end we all slept together on the bridge.
Yeah.
So we just put a mattress on the bridge and we all slept in there because it was so cold, and we didn't have food, and it was just a really desperate time.
Were you getting paid?
No, you didn't get. You got maybe a token gesture when
Why
you came off.
Why didn't you just leave?
Because how am I going to leave?
I don't know. But I mean, this just sounds like a ridiculous life.
Because I think you underestimate the passion that you've got for that place. Okay. Because we're waiting for, more money to come out, or for there to be an influx of people that want to come. Towards the end, lots of things had gone wrong. It had been raided, hadn't it, a few years prior to that?
Tell me about that. So the raid.
The raid. I was there for the raid. Yeah, that was all sorts of stories go on about this raid. And I remember being on air as this Dutch tug came up alongside, and it had been out there for a little while. But this Dutch tug came up alongside, and then they just basically got on board and stripped the boat. So they took the studios out. They took the records library.
Yeah.
They took the transmitters, or the key components of the transmitters, and they just kind of like stripped it all out, and they came on. One of them had a gun, and I think somebody got hit in the process. But apparently I hear I was manhandled during all of it. Everybody says, you were manhandled doing that. I wasn't manhandled. The way I look at it is they were shit for doing what they were doing, but they were doing their job. So they came out to do their job, and then loads of people came out, the press came out, and it happened on the same day, I think, as the Marchioness disaster that happened on the River Thames.
Right.
And of course, people are listening to what's going on the radio, because we were live up until the point that they boarded, and we were saying, we're about to be boarded by the authorities, and they sort of like boats were coming out to see what they could do, to see if they could help, and the managers or whatever, they came out, and anoraks, they came out. Some people went back home, but there were a few of us that stayed behind, and we were determined that we were going to build it back up again, because the one thing that they underplay in all of this is the authorities. They did say at one point, when they were stripping everything out, we are going to have lunch. We'll be gone for 30 minutes.
No.
So they went to have lunch. They were gone for 30 minutes. And in that 30 minutes, we managed to hide some equipment. We managed to hide some records. We managed to hide stuff that was needed in the engineering department from the transmitters and so on and so forth. So stuff was hidden so that at some point we could get back on air again.
Amazing.
So they were doing their job, and they gave us that little bit of leeway to hide stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, they were giving you the chance
I think
to get...
looking back on it now, because you would leave somebody, wouldn't you? But as that is my memory of it. Somebody else may come and say, that didn't happen.
It sounds a bit dodgy, because if the SAS were breaking into a building to rescue some survivors, I don't think they'd go, I'm sorry, it's 12:30, we've just got to knock off for half hour.
If you look at it, we weren't actually doing anything wrong.
No, I know, yeah.
We were people that were playing music to entertain people, and it was illegal. Of course it was. But at the same time, who's it hurting? So if you were sent on a mission to destroy that,
maybe you would give them half hour for lunch.
You give them half an hour. I'd have said, I'll be gone half a day. But no, so we built it back up again. I say we, I was on the boat. There were a few of us on the boat. But to me, it never came back from that, really, because it was... I don't know if you're superstitious or anything like that, but what happened that day just unsettled something on that boat. You've got to remember that this boat was an old fishery boat. It was for Ross Fisheries. Mm-hmm. So at some point it had been a fishing vessel, and it had been out, it had seen rough seas, it had done all of that, and it had its own kind of like energy, its own sort of vibe, and people said that there was a ghost out there. So after the raid, it took us a while, and, I'm cutting a very long story short. We got it back on air. At one point, there were just three of us out there on the boat, and there was myself and there was Dave. Now, Dave was my partner at the time. And I got up to do the breakfast show. And to go along the corridor, you have to go past the engine room, and I could hear whistling. So there was somebody whistling, and not just the wind whistle, because you get the wind whistle on a boat, but this was a tune. So a tune was being whistled from in the engine room. So I stuck my head in and said, hello. And this whistling stopped. And then I walked off and the whistling started again. Now, I knew there was myself, Dave, and Peter Chicago, who was the engineer. We're the only three people actually on this boat. So I went up the flight of steps to get to the studios. And then the next flight of steps were where his cabin was. And I popped up and his door was open. He was asleep. So Dave was asleep, I'm awake, Peter's asleep, so somebody's whistling. So we're in the studio, which isn't the normal one that we use. We've rigged a studio up. I go on air at 6:00 in the morning. And the studio next door, which is the one that had been wrecked and ripped out, that's in darkness. I'm on air. I've started the show. It's all rolling along quite nicely. And I can feel somebody looking at me. Oh. And I know that somebody's looking at me. And they're not just looking through the glass. It's like they are looking, but they are peering round. So we've got the double glass like we've got in these studios here. So they're just peering round, and I can see that face in my mind's eye. And it took me all the strength I could muster to run out of my studio and turn the light on so that I could actually have that illuminated, and then this figure I couldn't see anymore. And I was talking later about it, and apparently originally, when that boat was a fishing boat, that would have been at the hospital. So that would have been where you went to get treated. Yeah. And how I saw that face peering around the glass, that would have been where the bunk was situated and where that person would have been lying in it. So people can think it's fanciful. They can make of it what they will. But that's what I mean. After that raid, something shifted on that boat. You'd go down to the galley, all gatherings were on. And you'd hear things happening, and it was weird. I'm not saying it was bad. I never felt scared there, never felt frightened, but I think it churned something up. There was some sort of unrest there.
Oh, the hairs on the back of my neck and arms, Caroline. Stop that stuff. I don't like it, do I? You know that.
Is this going out or is it just in our headphones?
The hamster's fine.
It was a technical problem. You heard something on air you shouldn't have done.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got rescued.
And then we got rescued. So this was ages later. We're skipping back and forth here, aren't we? We were rescued. We had nothing. And we had one of those old mobile phones, those big block phones. And we had this battery, a car battery. And I think we managed to scrape enough stuff off the battery to get some sort of contact onto this telephone. And I remember we took a call from one of the guys that would come out, a big supporter, and he did so much. His name was Dave Turner, Dave the Fish, we used to call him. And all I remember is picking up the phone and in like, the anchor's going to break. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, you're going to end up on the Goodwins. You're going to end up on the Goodwin Sands. Because I think that when people think of sea, they think, right, sea, flat, lot of room beneath it, but actually you're surrounded by sandbanks. I don't even remember us calling for help, because I don't know how we could have called for help. But anyway, we had decided that come what may, what would be, we were just going to go to sleep. And we just sort of like laid down. We had the generator inside by then. So we'd got all these fumes going on. And then the next minute, all you see are these lights outside and this massive noise, and there's a gale blowing, a strong storm blowing at this point, and a Sea King helicopter is above, and the next thing, we're just being winched off it.
And that was it? And
that was that. And do you know, it literally broke my heart.
I was going to ask, tell me about those emotions.
It was awful. It was, if I could change anything, it would be that day.
Would it?
And I wouldn't leave it. And you're going to make me cry now.
Oh, please don't cry.
No, because you kind of like, you're being lifted off and winched into this helicopter, and you're looking down. And all I can see is this boat and it's still got Caroline written on it, on the side and on the bow, and you're just sort of like leaving it to its fate. It's there alone. But I don't know what more we could have done, because
sounds like you did as much as you could.
We were little kids, and we did as much as we could for it. But it was still horrible. And if I could change it, I wouldn't have left it.
Making me cry now, Caroline.
You're hard.
Let's move on then, Caroline, because some wonderful memories of Radio Caroline. I've got more questions, but let's not push it, because I know you're emotional about that, and let's move on to the next. Right, so I'm trying to work out in my head. So the next radio station, Contact 94.
Contact 94.
Okay, I forgive me.
Yeah, you know nothing about it. No, it was a radio station in France.
You've moved around so many places, haven't you?
It went for the Channel Islands. It was for the Jersey and the Channel Islands.
Is this a pirate station?
No. This is actually in France, in a place, I think it was called Lessay, near a town called Le Haye-de-Puy. It was in the upstairs part of, there was a nightclub underneath, but it was like in the middle of a field, in the middle of nowhere. And it was, a radio station for Jersey and the Channel Islands, an English-speaking station.
Yeah.
But we had to do a few French lines an hour that we had written down.
Can you remember any of them?
No, do you know, in my whole time there, and do you know, this is how I would do things differently, because I'd learned to speak French and embrace it more. I think la mer musique.
More music?
In that whole time, I learned to ask for une baguette. S'il vous plaît.
Sandwich.
As long as I had a bread and a brew, I was happy. But no, that was fabulous. That was great, and everybody there mostly was from Caroline.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was more poppy than Caroline, I think, as I can recall, and it was on solid ground. But we did everything there. We used to make the commercials. So I think you used to, a supermarket would get in touch, and it would be like, right, we want to advertise on the radio station. So one of us would write a commercial, and then we'd voice it up. And you got £25 for writing the script,
Right.
and £25 for voicing it up. And I used to do it a lot with my friend out there, Gavin. Bless him, Gavin Ford. He was on Radio Caroline with me. Bless Gavin, he's no longer with us. We'd write comedic ones, comical ones, so that we could do a two-parter, so we could split the money. Because if you had two voices on it, you could get a little bit more money. And we used to just have the most fun just writing these commercials and voicing these commercials. But you could have a day off, but you'd have to pre-record your show. And we would go to Jersey.
Okay.
Because you wanted to go and I wanted some sun-blessed bread and, stuff like that you couldn't get in France. And the little ferry thing only took about half an hour to get there. But it was just so weird because you'd record your show for the Saturday and then you'd be in Jersey, and literally at that point, everyone listened to it. So you'd be driving around and all you'd hear is yourself. Just sort of like coming out of cars and coming out of shops and all the rest of it, and it would blow your mind that this many people were listening to this radio station. But yeah, it was fabulous. We had a lovely time there.
So then you come to the UK,
yeah,
and Chiltern's super gold. So how do you go from Contact 94 to Chiltern? So you're essentially coming back here and getting your first job in the UK? Yeah,
I think I must have made some sort of demo and sent it to this lovely man called Steve Collins. He was the programme controller there, and I sent it him. I went to go and see him, and then I went to go and do a show in Dunstable. And I'd only just learnt to drive. I was cacking myself thinking I'm going to break down. I had a trial drive from Cambridge to Dunstable and back again. Mm-hmm. And then when I did the show, it was awful. And I daren't drive back home again. So I waited until the sun came up and then I drove back home. And then he called me on the Monday. He said, how did it go? I said, it was terrible. It was terrible. He said, right. He said, OK, now we've got that out of the way. What was wrong with it? Because whatever was wrong with it, come and put it right this weekend. So I went and did that. But I only did 2 shows there. And then I think I said, you could do much better than me because my husband does this much better. And then my husband, Dave, at the time, he went to work there.
So you talked yourself out of a job?
I talked myself out of a job because it really wasn't for me. Because I have to really, I can't do a thing for the sake of doing it. I've got to really like it. It's just
no, I know that. Yeah,
it's so it's on the radio, and Steve was amazing, but it wasn't really. I knew it wasn't for me. So, and he was better on it. So, doing that type of thing. But from there, we went to Invicta to Super Gold, and that was what it was. It's a weird thing, isn't it? Because have you noticed I'm Southern?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
although you and I, when we're together and we're ever doing accents, we always go Bristolian. It's really strange, isn't it?
I've only ever been there once.
I know. I think I've only been there once.
Have you, my lover?
I don't know why we do it. It's weird, isn't it?
I don't know why we do it.
But yeah, you are Southern.
Yes, I am Southern. But so you'd think that I would mould well into
Southern life. Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't like it.
Did you?
No.
Did you give that job away as well?
There was drama there that I'm not going to go into.
Okay, yeah.
But I then went up north. And
Okay.
and that was very nice. I went to Magic in Sheffield
Yep.
and had the most amazing boss. I've been really lucky because I've had brilliant bosses pretty much everywhere I've been.
You are lucky.
That have taught me something. Tony McKenzie, he was there. He was absolutely fabulous. Mm-hmm. And I did that. And then because that was on Magic, which was lovely, but it was on AM. And I thought, I've got to get out of this AM now. Something made me think I've got to get out of this AM. So I went to join a radio station called The Revolution in Oldham, working for a lovely guy, another great boss called Liam Forrestal, who'd set it all up. It hadn't even gone on air when I went to go and work for him, but it did come on, and we were in a shopping precinct above Dunkin' Donuts. Yes, get in.
They love
on
that.
a stone. No, and it was lovely. And then I went to Rock FM after a while because I came back and had my son Jude, and then went back up north again and worked on Rock FM.
So I know we've just briefly mentioned the 3 stations there, but we've got to Rock FM, and you've got fond memories of Rock.
Rock FM was... Do you know, I was only there for 6 months, and again, I had a lovely, amazing boss. He was fantastic, but Rock FM is one of those stations that, because I used to listen to it thinking, this sounds incredible. everything about this radio station sounds incredible. And when he gave me a job, I drove in and the hairs on the back of my neck were standing on end.
Was that when it was all the American voiceovers and...
It was, I don't know what the voiceovers was on at night. Was it? I don't know.
Well, this is one thing about Caroline. You don't really care about production and stuff,
No,
do you?
no, not really.
You're not Anaraki at all.
Sorry,
No, you
sorry.
shouldn't apologise. I think it's a better thing to be.
It's... it had Rick Vaughan was on there,
Yeah.
Rob Ellis. There were absolutely fabulous people on there, but to actually be on that station was amazing. And I've never worked at a radio station with response like it. Like literally, you'd go on at night because I was on 10 till 2, same as now. You'd go on at night and it didn't stop. You know, you'd just be sat there as the messages were coming in and coming in and coming in, and it was amazing. And it was in an old church as well.
Yeah.
And Brian said, because people kept leaving cups in the new studios, they'd just been all done out and they were glitzy and lovely. And I think he said that he was going to start charging $5, and you knew that he could do that. So you'd have to sort of like leave the studio at 2 a.m. and then run up to the kitchen on your own.
Is this because, and look, the Rock FM was famous. All radio stations have got a ghost.
Yeah.
But Rock FM was always the most famous. The ghost at Rock FM was supposed to be hideous.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I never saw any ghost, but...
Is that why you were scared of taking the cups upstairs?
Oh, God, it was because it was like in an old church.
Yeah.
Like literally, and you would... Yeah. I think at some point, was the producer there with me? I remember doing that run alone sometimes, but you'd have to foist yourself up and run and do it. And then get on your merry little way, drive back to Skipton thinking, phew. But
Skipton from Rock FM?
Yeah, I lived in Skipton. Oh, don't tell me. To me, you know what I'm like with geography?
Yeah.
Well, when I went to work on Magic, it was in Sheffield, and I thought, I've always loved Yorkshire.
Yeah.
I'll go and live in Skipton because I used to watch that on All Creatures Great and Small. Bloody 90 miles a day there and 90 miles back. So,
and you stuck with it. You carried on.
stuck with it.
All because of All Creatures Great and Small.
But you know what? It was worth it to live in Skipton. It's just idyllic, absolutely beautiful. Yeah, Rock FM was Brian Page. He was the boss there, and he was very, very supportive. But I remember going in and I didn't know how to use Dalet that they used. That I didn't know how to use it. I hadn't got a clue. So they'd arranged for somebody to come in and show me, and I think he turned up late. So I went on. Am I good technically, Foxy? I mean, you know I'm a little bit not good.
No,
I've learned to be better.
Yeah.
But at that point, and I thought to myself, oh my God, this is like my dream station, and I don't know how to use the equipment. And then I thought, okay, be calm, because worst case scenario, you've got a microphone. You just have to talk for 4 hours. It's easy. You can do this. You can do this. And then I thought this is going to be the quickest in and out of a radio station ever, because I'm going to balls this up and they're never going to have me back. But at least I can say I've done it. And then I went and worked it all out and it was absolutely fine. But no, it was. And do you know what? It was one of those radio stations where, because some radio stations are not... I'm trying to be delicate.
Go on, just say it.
No, some radio stations are... To work at Rock, it was a team.
Yeah, a family.
A family.
Yeah.
They didn't really know me. Bear in mind, I'm the woman on at night.
Yeah.
But I did a mistake once, and it was a big mistake. It was something to do with the competition, and that was it. So
Okay.
I made a mistake, and I thought this is me doomed. And do you know what? They all came together to help me out. So... They were really lovely people, and Rick Vaughan was there. He then was with me later at BRMB. Very fond memories of Rick.
So, can we talk about your now husband, Adam?
Yes.
Because didn't you meet him at Invicta?
Yes. Yeah.
And he was reading your travel?
Yes, he was.
Was he any good at reading travel?
He was very good at reading travel. I think
You sound like you're reading off a script there, Caroline.
No, he was very, very good at reading travel. I think that we'd... I tried to throw him once because he had a sore throat, and I made some reference to deep throat.
Do you know what? Can I just say as well, having now worked with Caroline for 10 months, and you have made, for example, Scott Mills's innuendo bingo a couple of times, haven't you? You know that.
Yes.
But it comes from pure innocence. You do say innuendos quite often on air, and I often look through the double pane glass from the operations room, and I kind of peer over my computer, I look at you, and it clicks in your head. You think back to what you just said, and you're like, I did just say I did have his balls in my hand.
Yeah.
But you would have been talking about football. Like, it was purely,
Yes.
You are very innocent.
Thank you. Yes.
You are, though.
Yes,
so,
I am.
I think it's a nice trait to have, I think. So, the reason why I brought Adam up, because then you moved from rock to BR&B.
Yeah.
But Adam's the boss.
Yeah.
At BR&B.
Tricky that, innit? Tricky one.
You weren't together, though, were you?
Yeah.
You
I
were?
had his children. I think that classes us together.
But I thought you had his children whilst you were in Birmingham.
Yeah, I did.
No, but I'm on about when in Victor, and then you came from rock. Did he bring you to BR&B?
What happened with that was he had a boss called John O'Hara.
Yeah, I know John.
And apparently John O'Hara, so I'm told, had heard me on rock. Because does he come from Liverpool, or is he got Liverpool connections?
He was on Radio City, yeah.
Right, okay. And he'd said to Adam, there's a girl up there that you need to get on BR&B. Mm-hmm. And that was me. And Adam's heart sank because he'd tried everything to not take me there. But no, I came to work with him at BR&B, and everybody, I have had all of this levelled at me. You only got the job because you're his wife.
No, I'm not saying that.
No,
I'm not saying
but
that.
It's fair cop because people are going to assume that, aren't they? And I get it. You've got to prove yourself.
Well, you did.
And I think I did.
You got a Sony Award.
So. Yeah.
You got great figures?
Yeah, but...
better than ours?
And I don't... people always say you must have... I had a harder time working for Adam.
Well, do you know what? And this is not... It's not similar...
He was bloody horrible to me sometimes, Adam.
My mum was my teacher at primary school.
Yeah.
And people went, oh, well, I bet you get off with everything. No. My life was a lot harder because I'd get a bollocking at school and then I'd get told off at home as well.
Yeah.
So for you, I know he's not your mummy. And whatever you get up to at home, Caroline, that's entirely up to you and Adam. But it must have been harder for him to be your boss and to be your partner as well.
Yeah, and to begin with, I only did. It wasn't too bad because I came to do 2 or 3 late shows a week at the weekend.
Right.
And that was it. That was what I was meant to do, and I did. And then I think somebody left, and so then I did the week's worth. When I'm with Adam at work, he is... I don't look upon him as my husband. I think Adam is so good at what he does and he is so wise about radio. I respect him enough to listen to the advice that he gives me. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to cut my own nose off to spite my face and ignore what he has to say because he is very good at giving good advice. He's the only person, sometimes, I do go off at a tangent sometimes, and if I get excited, I will waffle.
I've never noticed.
And I'll go home and the next day I'll go down. He's got a little office, down in the garden. And I'll go in, hi, you talked a load of shit last night. And, anybody else, if they said that, I'd be like, oh, yeah, right. Yeah. And I think, yeah, you're right. I may have got overexcited, and I do when I get overexcited. I hate people fannying about. I can't stand it when you're in a meeting and they don't like something that you've done, and it takes a bloody hour to tell me. Yeah. Tell me as soon as I sit down, and then I can work at putting it right.
I've been in these meetings, yeah.
Am I too direct?
No, that's how I prefer people to be.
Because the interesting thing, the first ever meeting that I had with Adam and the rest of the team was when I was moved to breakfast. Because I did the late show and I loved it. And they said to me, how do you feel about moving to breakfast? I said, I'm cheery where I am. Thanks. I like it at night. And they're like, well, we're networking it. So basically it's, you go, I said, breakfast will be fine.
You love it, yeah.
I've always wanted to get up at 4. But we were in our first breakfast meeting and he came out with something and then we were having these meetings that lasted every day for an hour. Mm-hmm. And I gave him a retort back. And afterwards he said, you cannot talk to me like that in front of everybody just because I'm your husband. And I said, I think there's been some misunderstanding. I'm not talking to you like that because you're my husband. I just don't agree with what you said. And I've done that to every boss. Not in a rude... I don't actually think I'm rude. I'm not confrontational.
No, it's just direct.
Do you think I'm rude? You've sat in those meetings with me.
I genuinely don't think you're rude.
Again, if somebody makes a point and you don't agree, surely it's best to...
Just get it done.
Exactly. And I think any boss that I've had, maybe I do take a bit of getting used to. I'm from the Fens. We speak as we find there. There's no point... You've
gone Irish.
I was trying not to do my Fen voice because I can't really remember how to do it. But I just think that rather than dress it up, just tell me exactly. And it's like my bosses, they know that I've heard that Caroline said something, or you've said something about me, they know that isn't the case, because I will tell them directly.
To the face, absolutely.
And I would rather people be like that with me.
Absolutely, best way to be.
We're having a party.
So let's talk about BRMB, which, I've obviously got a lot of love for BRMB. Heritage station, iconic station. I remember when myself and Juliana got the job there, people said that you could go to American people who heard of BRMB. I mean, you were there for a long time. You must have had some very fond memories.
I had, some lovely memories of BRMB. It was... Again, it was one of those stations where the hair on the back of your head stands up. And I used to do the breakfast show with Elliot Webb.
Who's great.
Who is absolutely fantastic. And we had a meeting about doing the show. And I remember Adam saying to me, right, you're going to meet a girl now. She's going to be your producer. You're not going to get on. You're not going to like each other. But she is very good at what she does. So just wind your neck in and just listen to what she's got to say. I met her, Liesl Swords, and within 5 minutes we were best friends, and we still are best friends, and I love the bones of her. She's mad in many ways, but we just got on so well and worked together incredibly well as well. She was fantastic, but we would get into some scrapes. And I remember, because Adam used to sit in the office in BRMB, he had a view of everybody going past. You couldn't get out of programming without him seeing you. And when we knew we were going to get told off after a show, me and Liesl would crouch down on the floor and crawl out and go down to the car park to have a smoke before we got told off. And one day he caught us and all you heard was, Liesl, Caroline, get in my office now. So we'd be summoned back in. But I think that we were very mischievous together, and poor Elliot was caught in the middle of it all, bless him.
Bless him.
But there were some great people over there. And of course, Jezza, Jeremy Kyle, Jezza's Confessions, all of that was on before I even got there. And it was just an amazing station.
And of course, Orion come in, turns into free, and then you get put back onto late, and then the Sanctuary is born.
The Sanctuary was reborn.
Reborn?
Yeah, because the Sanctuary was born when I first came to Birmingham. Because that was David Lloyd, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who came in and churned everything up.
He did?
So to speak.
Well, he brought me in.
Yeah. But we can't get everything right all the time.
Hey!
No, I'm joking. Yeah, he can. And that was a funny old time, because he took Elliot and I off of breakfast, and of course we were outraged by this.
Yeah.
But it turns out that was the best thing that he could have done for me, and I just had a new lease of love for radio after that, because David Lloyd, he taught me. No, I don't. Did he? He allowed me to be me. That's rare in a manager, isn't it? That they allow you to be you and guide you to be better, and not dictate to you, but would allow you to make mistakes and allow you to do this, that and the other, and just make you a better presenter, whether it be the use of words or one word or just one word put here, and not to be frightened of not saying anything, and all those things that he taught me were invaluable. So although I thought that my world was ending when that breakfast show ended, I actually went on to learn far more from David Lloyd. And when I'm in a sticky situation now, because I think on the late show that we do now, there are some hard calls sometimes, aren't there?
Yeah.
And I think, what would David say to do? So I've still got him in a file that I bring out when needed.
The Lloyd file.
Because he gave me such excellent advice.
I remember listening to the Sanctuary and going, I can't believe that she's talking about this. I'd never heard radio like that before.
Yeah.
I mean, you were talking about dildos, you were talking about ghosts. I mean, you talked about everything, didn't you?
Because nothing was out of bounds. And sometimes we'd say to David, right, we'd have to go and have a planning meeting. And he'd always be like, I don't like that. If there was something he didn't like, I don't like it. But he never said, so don't do it. He said, I don't like that, but go and do it anyway, and let's see if I'm wrong. But he was never, smug if it didn't work. And he was always generous if it did work. He was just the best boss ever, in my humble opinion.
Isn't it true that you told your two girls Holly and Willow that they were not allowed to listen to The Sanctuary?
No, I told the boys that.
Okay.
Yeah, I told the boys that because
The girls were too young.
The girls were too young, but I said to the boys, right, don't listen to Mum on a Sunday night because we do.
Was that the saucy night?
That was the sex night.
Okay.
And we went through a phase where we'd send sex toys out and people would have to rate them. So we had a bag of vibrators.
So you sent sex toys out to listeners?
Yeah.
And they had to road test the equipment and then give you a test.
Yeah. So, we'd be like, Gina, here's the rampant rabbit for you. And somebody else would have whatever one and they'd all go out. And then I think a lovely guy called Pete, he actually was the recipient of a flesh lamp that unfortunately, because I was in a real hurry and when I packaged it up, I wasn't as vigilant as I might have been. So the postman went, Pete, flesh lamp for you, mate. But anyway, it did the trick. He did rate it quite high.
It got a 9.
It got a 9. But we used to do the position of, somebody would, position of the week. And it was all about enhancing your sex life and stuff like that. And it only transpired years after I'd finished the show. Elliot said, Mum, the whole year used to listen in secret, you doing this sex show. And I'm like, oh my God, mortified because, nothing was out of bounds. I think in the end, we used to get somebody to come in because even my head acknowledged I'm a mum now and I can't be talking about dogging and swinging when potentially, because I had to do the school run the next day.
I was going to ask about the school run.
Yeah.
So you must have had to get up in the morning and then just face other parents who would listen to you rate a dildo with Gina from wherever. Yeah,
they used to say, have you got any spares? Did you bring any home? So the worst one was we did a show once about it was about people smoking outside the school. Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing? People smoking outside the school. And obviously, we were like, there's a time and a place to have a smoke. Why do you need to do it outside the school gates? Blah, 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 blah. And then I went to do the school run the next day, load of women out there.
What,
just sort of like blowing a cloud of smoke. I just cackled and went in. But you forget sometimes there's payback, isn't there? For
well, you forget that people are listening sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
It's strange, isn't it, when somebody mentioned it? And then obviously you go to the BBC, BBC WM, and now you are on the Network Late Show, which is excellently produced. Got to say,
yeah, he's not bad, is he?
He's a good-looking guy, and you've been on a few late shows in your career. You prefer lates, which you've already mentioned. What is it about lates that you love?
The audience. And do you know what really pisses me off? Can we swear on these podcasts?
It's a bit late now, Caroline. You've said a few.
Do you know what makes me cross?
Yeah, go on.
Is when... and I know why people do it, but I get a lot of messages even now from people that are like, oh, it's so sad that you've been put on the Late Show. Now, I could have been put on the Late Show because they think I'm not good. Who knows? People make their own choices, don't they? Yeah. But to me, The Late Show is the best show to do. And I always wanted to do The Late Show. I mean, it was in such good hands here for so long. Graham Torrington did it. And I mean, he's immense. He's a legend. Mm-hmm. I just had to wait until he decided for a life of sunshine. And then it came up and who would not want it? It is the best time to be on. It is the most personable time to be on. You've got listeners that have got, they've got the luxury of time to talk to you and to listen to you. Because if you look at the daytime radio, because we think we're on a 3-hour show, somebody is going to come in at 10 and they're going to listen till 1 to all of it. They listen, for 10, 20 minutes, if that? But at night, people have got the luxury of being able to spend that time with you. I had a woman that stopped me once and she said, you have ruined my relationship with my mother. And I was like, what do you mean? What? How? She said, because I used to chat to her on the phone every night, but she now says, don't call me. I don't want to talk to you because I need to start to get ready for bed so I can listen to Caroline from 10 o'clock. And, I don't want any interruptions because it's an appointment for company. And I think that's what we're trying to make that show. We are companions. You are welcome. We care about you. We care about what you want. And we do try and make it different. We've talked about animals. We've talked about, we do sex shows. We've got the men's club. We've got the dilemma. We try and have some laughs in it, but we're not afraid to get serious. We're not afraid to tackle really deep subjects, and that's what you can do at night. That's the luxury of night. It is the best time to be on. And if anybody listening is thinking, oh yeah, but I really want the daytime, be careful what you wish for.
Your biggest thing was to make it different to any other late show. You didn't want to do the sleepy show that people are falling to sleep and here's another song from whoever. You wanted it to be a party at night.
My idea of hell on earth is to play love songs.
Yeah.
And I'm not being detrimental or disrespectful to anyone that does it. I just don't like them.
Yeah, I know.
I once had to do a love song show, and I only did it once, and it was the longest 3 hours of my life, and I couldn't do it. And you know what? There'd be no point in me do it because I would not do it justice. I remember sitting in on a show once at Invicta where it was a love show, and this call came in, and it was basically, you know, can you say hello to my girlfriend and tell her that I love her? And the presenter, this is off air, it's, you know, he's writing the message down. Where is your girlfriend? Oh, she's next to me on the sofa. And then the phone went down. Yeah, of course I'll do that in 5 minutes time. And then he's like, why the fuck can't she just? He just turn around and do it there. Tell her that he loves her. And there is a certain logic to that. I've got a vision of everybody just sort of like cuddled up on the sofa, and you've texted in, so you've got this expectation. My text is going to be read out in a minute. You know, you're going to know that I love you because I've just texted in for, you know, Lone Star and Amazed or something like that. And then it comes on, and, you know, the effort that's gone into this text. But that, I just don't like love songs. I have to enjoy what I do. If it ceases to be fun, to my mind, it ceases to be worth doing.
So tell me, who are the standout people that you've worked with?
David Lloyd, I've mentioned him. Tony McKenzie was great. Brian Page at Rock FM, sadly, no longer with us. And Adam. And I'm not just saying Adam Bridge because I'm married to him, but he's taught me a great deal. And I think he knows an awful lot about radio. And he's another one that I still go to now for honest advice. And that's how I can kind of like divide the fact that I'm married to him, because to me I do love wise people.
Well, you
people
do,
that make sense.
You respect his opinion, don't you?
And that's the thing. And if I respect somebody, I will forever listen to them, and I will always sort of like, you know, come back to what they've taught me.
We started with this. I'm going to finish with it. How proud is your dad of what you've achieved?
My dad, I called him once and said, Dad, I'm going to be interviewing the Prime Minister. Oh, right. And when's that interview with Jeff Lynne? That has been his proudest moment. I interviewed Jeff Lynne of ELO. So all the important people, don't matter. Jeff Lynne of ELO. And my dad's like, whoa, that is amazing. I still remember the time that we built the little model from the Out of the Blue album. So my dad, he's loving it. This is a long way from where it all began, isn't it? Because it started music. For me, it was all about the music. Now, I love music, but it's very secondary. To me, it's about the talking and the listening.
But you've essentially lived out your dad's dream.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true.
Do you think you'd have been a good driving instructor?
I'd have been shit. I haven't got any patience. And I've got the attention span of a gnat.
I know that.
I'd see something and think, that's better than what I'm doing.
But you have lived out your dad's dream.
I have lived out my dad's dream, and I hope he's proud of me. And it was a brave thing. And I don't know that many people would let their 15-year-old girl, daughter. That sounds quite sexist. That's not meant like that, because at the end of the day, you're with a boat full and you can't get off of men. Mm-hmm. But I'm so glad that he did. Because without him letting me do that, I'd still be living in Cambridgeshire, and I'd still be probably working in Tesco's.
You were reluctant to do this.
I was reluctant to do it.
Do you know the reason why? You didn't think anybody would find anything interesting. I think you've been fascinating.
There's a lot of people in radio that do rock and roll stuff, and they like that side of it. I don't care. I just love talking to people. I love being on the radio and talking to people, and then I just want to get home to my babies.
I know.
That are grown up now.
Yeah.
So, I enjoy this. I enjoy listening to you doing this. Please do, Ian Lee.
We want to get Ian Lee.
He's my favourite.
Yeah, he's on the list. Well, we've got a lot of people on the list that we're now in touch with. So, yeah, there's a lot of good people coming up. Well, Caroline, thank you so much.
I've got to read this shit.
Just text her the famous
sorry.
outtake.
Okay, sorry, I'll be professional. You've been listening to Crunch and Roll with me, Caroline Martin. Subscribe on your favourite podcast app to get every new episode as soon as it drops. Crunch and Roll is a 969 media production presented by John Fox and produced by Simon... How do you say that? Buchowski.
Buchowski. I don't even know.
What is that?
We've been best mates for 30 years.
Simon Borchowski.
That'll do.